We were given a sneak peek into James Gunn's Superman, and we agree with Gunn's fans that the film has a little non-serious and cringy vibe. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe, and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. That is a question that fans have been dying to know, and equally terrified to find out, ever since it was announced that the Guardians of the Galaxy director was going to direct this film. So, the new James Gunn Superman movie is going to be released soon, and the world is excited and terrified at the same time. Excited since this is Gunn's debut of the DCU, officially, and scared because, well, it's Superman. There has been a straight concept of Superman that hasn't been changed for decades. Of course, a few minor changes were seen as every director had their take on the character, but this time it's James Gunn, and some of the scenes are what you can call cringy. According to the conversation on the hot mic, fans talked about how the new scenes from Superman seem cringy. Even host John Rocha seemed to agree that the scenes did look very cringy. And it seems that people are now regretting the day Henry Cavill hung the iconic cape for the last time. New footage from the upcoming Superman has been revealed to the world, and fans are indeed excited. However, there is one complaint that a majority of the people seem to be having regarding the film. With Gunn having a different taste, a dash of humor, and a lot of iconic shots in a film, this wasn't really what Superman had been so far. Countless iterations later, Gunn's Superman is ready to be revealed to the world. Finally, the first reviews are here. There is something magical about the director. Gunn can find a way to incorporate humor into the darkest of situations, and it would still make people laugh. The director has proved himself countless times with the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise and the Suicide Squad. Even though there might be some people who would defend the movie by stating that it's too early to say anything, others are already spreading negative reviews on the internet. John Rocha and fans even compared a particular scene to that of a Pixar movie, and it is quite evident that they are not wrong. The scenes in question are when Superman is helped by the robots in hopes of recovering enough to fight back. During that whole segment, the CGI looks awkward, and the suit has a weird feel to it. The CGI really breaks down the barrier of full immersion, as we got distracted in trying to find out what went wrong. However, every director has their break, and it seems that, unfortunately, Superman could be James Gunn's big break, not in a good way. We saw the scenes from the upcoming film, and all we can say is that two things: terrible CGI, cringy dialogues. On the other hand, something's up with James Gunn's humor. In a tense moment where Gunn's iconic humor usually works, the dialogue seems stifled and cringy. To put it bluntly, we were really excited to see the teaser for Superman. Now, we aren't so sure about the film. James Gunn and David Corenswet's Superman could really be the maker or breaker of DC Studios and the DCU. We sincerely hope and wish that Gunn's Superman becomes a hit and not another failed DC project. Zack Snyder's movies have long been labeled as too dark, the kind of stuff people claim kids shouldn't even peek at. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. And sure, Snyder definitely leans into mature themes, but calling his films dark? That might be a bit of an overstatement. Take Man of Steel, for instance. When Henry Cavill first donned the cape in 2013, some fans swore the movie was so intense it scared the fun out of Superman, and apparently, out of kids, too. But the internet has receipts, and one adorable video is flipping that narrative on its head, proving that even little ones can't resist the charm of the modern-day Kryptonian. Henry Cavill and Zack Snyder's fans made fans of James Gunn's Superman eat their words after they stated that kids were afraid of them. A normal conversation on X turned sour when a person claimed that Snyder cultists wouldn't be able to understand how kids shouldn't be afraid of Superman since he is the symbol of hope. This time, fans of Zack Snyder and fans of James Gunn are fighting once again over who had the better knowledge of Superman. With Snyder having Henry Cavill as his Man of Steel and Gunn having David Corenswet as his Superman, the two fandoms collided as the release date of James Gunn's Superman, with David Corenswet, comes closer and closer. The comparisons, reviews, and theories are becoming more random and toxic. So yeah, kids aren't really scared to see Zack Snyder's take on Henry Cavill's Superman, and neither are they scared to see James Gunn and his version of Superman with the infamous red trunks. Although people could have answered this topic normally, a Snyder fan decided to take things one step further and upload a video on X. In an earlier interview, James Gunn sat down for a chat with Screen Rant to talk about his version of Superman and what changes he made compared to Zack Snyder's version. During their talks, Gunn may have poked an insult by stating that they wanted a Superman who kids could love and not be afraid of. Because we're trying on all these different versions, and we screen tested with trunks and no trunks. And one of the things David said is that Superman wants kids to not be afraid of him. If it was indeed a poke towards Zack Snyder and his version of Superman, it was a poke well done and so subtle. However, the tweet does prove that kids aren't as scared of Zack Snyder's movies as some of the adults are. It was David Corenswet and James Gunn who came up with the thought of making their Superman wear red trunks at the bottom, like in the comic books. For a while, Gunn was against the idea since not even Zack Snyder could make them look cool. However, it did seem quite random that the opinion regarding Henry Cavill and Zack Snyder's Superman came on the internet right at a time when James Gunn is all set for the release of his David Corenswet film. With David Corenswet replacing Cavill in the lead role, James Gunn's Superman is one of the most anticipated movies of all time. Matt Reeves recently revealed his game plan for how he would expand his The Batman Elseworld, amping the pressure on James Gunn. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Matt Reeves entered the DC Universe with 2022's The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson in the titular role. The film introduced fans to a more corrupted yet realistic Gotham, different from what they had seen in Christopher Nolan's and Tim Burton's films. Inspired by David Fincher's have long been labeled as too dark. The film followed a serial killer who turned out to be the Riddler. Even peek at. Matt Reeves' The Batman universe Snyder is expanding with Max's mature Penguin receiving but calling reviews. His films dark. The show focuses on Oz Cobb, aka the Penguin's rise to power within Gotham's criminal ranks in the aftermath Henry Cavill first donned the cape in 2013. With the show's success, some fans swore the movie was so figured out how to scare the fun out of stories in the city. And apparently, it has been maintained since the beginning that Reeves' The Batman trilogy and any subsequent spin-off would be an Elseworld narrative on its head, DCU's main proving continuity. That even little ones can't resist the charm of the modern-day already expanding. Henry Cavill and maybe under pressure to ramp up his casting of James Gunn's Superman, the brave and the bold, after they stated that kids were afraid of them. Reeves reportedly has decided on how he would expand this Elseworld when a person claimed that Snyder cultists would not be able to understand how kids shouldn't be afraid of Superman. He mentioned to Andy the symbol of hope via Interview magazine fans of Zack Snyder and fans of James Gunn we have been fighting once again over who had the better knowledge of Superman. I think the idea of being able to put having Henry Cavill as his Man of Steel and Gunn having David Corenswet as about cities and their dysfunction and the world and the release date of James Gunn's which Superman, is what Batman stories are all about. Comes closer They're all about Gotham being a place that should be better. Reviews and theories are becoming more random and toxic. And the idea is to do these other stories aren't really scared to see Zack Snyder's take on Henry Cavill's film and the show, and neither are they scared to see James Gunn and his version of Superman in a way that would not compromise the story of the city. Although people could have answered this topic to expand on the world, the Snyder fan decided to take things one step further and upload a video on DCU's planned series of films. In an earlier interview, the James Gunn sat down for Batman and Robin to talk about his version of Superman and what changes he made compared to Zack Snyder's version. Gunn has maintained that there has been no script yet, nor have there been stating that they wanted a Superman who kids could love and not be afraid of. While Gunn himself is busy with Superman, on all these different versions, it may be high time the DCU announces its Batman and Matt Reeves' Gotham City. And one of the things David said is that Superman wants kids to not be afraid of him, to look forward to different projects that seem to have the same characters, but not in the same universe. It was a poke well done to avoid a DCU situation. However, the tweet has to establish that kids aren't as scared of Zack Snyder's despite initially being planned to be a part of the DCU. It was David Corenswet and James Gunn eventually came up with the thought of making their Superman trilogy of films focusing on a younger Batman like being planned. For a while, James Gunn took over as co-chief since not even Zack Snyder could make Reeves' universe was allowed to continue as an Elseworld. It did seem quite random that the opinion regarding Henry Cavill and Zack Snyder's Superman came on the internet reportedly at a time when James Gunn is all set for the release of his David Corenswet film, characters that would not get the importance replacing Cavill in the lead role. James Gunn's Superman is one of the most anticipated movies of all time, but he had been speaking with the studio. We have been talking about doing other shows. I think the idea of